Station 1. Jesus is condemned to death.
On the Jewish feast of the Passover, it was custom for the Roman prefect, Pontius Pilate, to give freedom to one prisoner chosen by the people. Pilate wants to release Jesus because he could not find him guilty of any crime. But Pilate gives in to the demands of the crowd. He frees a murderer named Barabbas and condemns Jesus to death. Death on a cross.
We continue to condemn people unjustly today. People are condemned for the shade of their skin, for their gender, or because of disabilities. They are condemned when they don't conform to our way of thinking, or any number of reasons that we decide they don't belong. In what ways have you condemned others? In what ways have you felt the sting of unjust condemnation?
God, help us learn from Jesus, who consistently reached out to people who were unjustly judged in their society. Change our hearts that we may see with new eyes those we might otherwise condemn.
Station 2. Jesus carries his cross.
After severely whipping and beating Jesus, soldiers dress him in a royal purple robe and place a crown of thorns on his head. They humiliate him, shouting,
"Hail, King of the Jews!"
He is given an impossibly heavy wooden cross to carry to Calvary, the place where he will be crucified.
All of us carry burdens, some of them obvious, and others that we take great pains to hide. Our burdens may be illness, chronic pain, disability, dependence on others, or caring for someone who no longer knows who we are. Some of us carry the burdens of constant anxiety, of loneliness, and isolation. What burdens do you keep hidden? What burdens are you drawn to help others carry?
Jesus, may we feel your presence in the burdens we carry. Help us to share our burdens freely and be more aware of the crosses that others may bear.
Station 3. Jesus falls for the first time.
Jesus is already weak from being cruelly whipped. He falls under the weight of the cross, but his determination is stronger than his physical suffering. He struggles back to his feet and continues his journey.
There are those who stumble and fall under the weight of poverty, harsh circumstances, or the result of unwise choices along their way. So often we fail to detect or foster the spark of determination, the whisper of hope, the flicker of courage that remains. Who does our society judge as lacking determination, persistence, or direction? Who in your life are you tempted to give up on?
Jesus, it is easy to see your image in saintly people or those who appear to be doing well. Help us to see you in those who have fallen as well.
Station 4. Jesus meets his mother.
Jesus comes face to face with his mother. The pain and anguish are shared by both. The crowd sees Jesus as a condemned man, but Mary sees her son. She watches him, knowing she can do nothing to save him. Jesus sees her pain, but he knows her love for him endures.
We see Mary's pain in the mothers and fathers who watch their children giving up their lives to addictions or suicide. In the grief of parents whose children are killed in the streets and on battlefields. In those who see their loved ones in prison. In the parents and children who are separated from each other and far from home. What losses in your community touch you deeply? Whose path in life causes grief in you?
Jesus, open our hearts to the depth of love and therefore the depth of pain in grieving families, regardless of the circumstances of their loss.
Station 5. Simon helps Jesus carry his cross.
When Jesus is unable to continue on his own, the soldiers fear he will die on the way, so they order a reluctant bystander to help him carry the cross.
Across our world, we see human suffering in the faces passing by us. Faces lined from conflict, weary with heavy responsibilities, shaken by the impact of fires and floods and storms, strained by spending their nights on the streets. What suffering in the world are you reluctant to acknowledge or address? When and where do you feel like a stranger?
Jesus, help us to be generous and welcoming to people we do not know, to people whose experience may be different from ours. Teach us to recognize and accept support from unexpected sources.
Station 6. Veronica wipes the face of Jesus.
As Jesus struggles along the way to Calvary, he continues to bleed from the crown of thorns and the wounds he has received. A woman in the crowd is overcome with compassion. She courageously goes to Jesus and wipes his face with her veil.
Courageous, compassionate people still step out of the crowds or out of prescribed roles and restrictions to offer help. It may be a grand public stand or a quiet, private gesture, but it makes a difference. Consider the courage it takes to reach out with compassion when it seems risky. Who has wiped your tears or eased your pain?
Jesus, give us the courage to step out to help, to serve, to heal, even when it is scary.
Station 7. Jesus falls a second time.
Even with help, Jesus falls again. Exhausted, he stares at the ground.
Remember, you are dust, and to dust you shall return.
He has seen death before. There on his knees, he can feel the profound weakness of disability, disease, and aging.
Many of us are still stumbling from the events of the last 2 years. We have been reminded of our mortality in new ways. People continue to struggle with illness, loneliness, job loss, and anxiety about the future. Allow yourself to feel compassion for those you tend to be impatient with. Consider how the Spirit of God is present with us in these strange times that keep tripping us up.
Jesus, remind us that falling is part of being human, that getting up may take time. Help us to find courage and grace for each other as we find our footing again.
Station 8. Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem.
The women of Jerusalem wept when they saw how Jesus suffered. Jesus recognized their distress and spoke to them.
Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children.
Look at Jesus and listen to his message for us today.
Weep for the children who are abused.
Weep for the women who are victimized.
Weep for those who believe they are unlovable because they suffer from restrictive gender roles or impossible to attain body images.
Weep for the old who are forgotten.
Weep for young people who cannot find work or direction in their lives.
Weep for people who are homeless or refugees.
Weep for people who are hungry in the shadow of abundance.
Weep for all who hurt.
Jesus, open our hearts to the suffering of all the people in the world. Give us insight and courage to change hurtful ideas and systems that oppress people.
Station 9. Jesus falls a third time.
Jesus, having gone about as far as he can, falls again. Clearly, he is near death. But again, he slowly gets up and continues on the way of the cross.
Many in our world are flattened by the devastating effects of natural disaster, violence, injustice, mental illness, or poverty. They feel unable to get up again, unable to go on. Some may look for relief in addictions or even escape through suicide. And yet, even in our most desperate moments of helplessness and depression, and whether we can recognize it or not, God is present. Consider that we are all vulnerable. Consider that God is present in our vulnerability.
Jesus, we pray that when our strength fails, when our hope fades, and our spirits grow weary, that we will be able to trust you are present with us.
Station 10. Jesus is stripped of his garments.
Jesus finally comes to the place where he will be crucified. The soldiers tear his clothing away from his body. Jesus stands before the crowd, humiliated and without any possessions at all. The soldiers take his clothes and divide them among themselves.
Our society has become callous about the sense of nakedness that our thirst for scandal creates. People are stripped of their privacy and of their dignity through thoughtless, malicious photos and news stories. They are victimized again and again as their stories are debated, judged, and ridiculed. In what ways might you be participating in demeaning others?
Forgive us, Lord, for the ways we add to the demand for ridicule, disrespect, and shaming of others. May the image of your clothes being ripped away serve as a reminder to guard each other's dignity.
Station 11. Jesus is nailed to the cross.
The soldiers lay Jesus down on the cross and drive large nails through his hands and his feet so that he can no longer move. They move the cross to a hole in the ground and set it upright. Jesus hangs on the cross he has carried, crucified between two criminals. Even now, Jesus forgives the soldiers and the people who were making fun of him. Jesus prays,
Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
There is much to be forgiven in our world. Greed, racism, hateful divisions over politics and ideologies, apathy, abuse of resources, and the list goes on. On the personal level, we've been hurt, misunderstood, cheated, betrayed. We struggle to understand the call to forgive. We marvel that Jesus forgave as he was executed. Consider what forgiving means to you. When you consider that you have already been forgiven, will you also be willing to forgive yourself?
Jesus, teach us the mystery of true forgiveness. give us the strength to practice the radical forgiveness that you showed as you died.
Station 12. Jesus dies on the cross.
After several hours of agony, Jesus cries out,
Father, into your hands I commend my spirit.
He breathes his last breath, and darkness comes over the earth. The great curtain in the Holy of Holies in the temple is torn in two, top to bottom.
Horrible things still happen to innocent people. We are angry and confused about tragic deaths, senseless violence, life-draining injustice at the hands of powerful systems. And sometimes our spirits are crushed under the weight of what we see. Consider that railing at God over what horrifies you in the world might be a first step toward commending your spirit to God, as Jesus did from the cross.
Jesus, we pour out our anger, our grief, and distress to you. We don't understand the cruelty we see in the world.
Station 13. Jesus is taken down off the cross.
The crowds have all gone home. Joseph of Arimathea, a follower and friend of Jesus, goes to Pilate and asks for Jesus' body. With tenderness, he goes to Calvary and carefully he takes the lifeless, damaged body of Jesus and prepares it for burial.
We know the tenderness of preparing to lay our loved ones to rest, the sorrow of loss, mingled with relief that their suffering has ended. Can you make room for relief and letting go in the midst of sorrow? What grief still haunts you?
Jesus, comfort us in our grief. Help us reach out and touch others in need, even when the circumstances are difficult. May they feel your love through our actions.
Station 14. Jesus is laid in the tomb.
Jesus' body is placed in a tomb which has been carved out of rock. A large stone is rolled across the entrance.
Many grieve for loved ones who have died far sooner than expected, and along with them, lost hopes and dreams and purpose. It is often uncomfortable to be in the presence of such deep sorrow, and we may try to move people through their grief on our timetable instead of theirs. Think about ways that new life comes out of darkness.
Jesus, we pray for all those we know who have died, and for those of us they have left behind. Today, we grieve over your death. We ask for the gift of faith when we are faced with the bleakness of grief and when our own death approaches. Give us eyes to see that darkness can hold the promise of new life.